Hey y'all, welcome to Remote Viewing Investigations with Jessica. I'm your host, Jessica Jones. We'll be peering through the veil to shed light on mysterious cases from all over the world. We invite you to join us on this magnificent journey through space and time to try to unravel these mysteries. Please don't forget to give us a thumbs up, share this out, and subscribe to Texas Front Porch and to my channel, The Cryptid Huntress on YouTube. You can find us on Odyssey Radio and iHeartRadio and can contact us at Texas Front Porch on Facebook or email us at paracryptidencounters@gmail.com and oracleofthesouth@gmail.com. You can reach us through text at 972-559-0988. If you'd like to support us in what we do here, our super chats are open. Thanks and enjoy the show. Hey everybody, welcome into Remote Viewing Investigations with Jessica Jones. I'm your host, Jessica Jones, and I have a really awesome show for you guys tonight. And I brought my friend, Barry Littleton, back for this week's show. He's going to be my guest co-host tonight. And, this is just something that it's almost like a part two to our Mothman show last week because there was a character that was brought up in the Mothman show named Indrid Cold. And I just had to look into him because he's also known as the Grinning Man. Okay. And I'm not sure if we can call him an exact cryptid. However, he could be an alien, let's just say, okay, or a men in black. So, or let's say a man in black, right? So I looked into him. I did some remote viewing of who this gentleman is because he's been spotted more than once by more people than just this one man for this one sighting that we referred to on the show last Friday. Okay, so thank everybody. I want to thank everybody for being here tonight. Thank you so much for spending your Friday night with Barry and I. We're going to have a lot of fun tonight as usual. So I'm going to read a little bit about the Grinning Man. Okay, so you guys can get an idea of what we're talking about tonight, and I'll pull some pictures up. We got a lot of information tonight. Okay, so all right, so the Grinning Man is reported to be human-like in appearance that was commonly associated with UFO activity. He's believed to perhaps be an alien. He's also possibly connected to the Men in Black. In this first sighting, he was described as being over 6 feet tall and wearing a reflective green suit and a black belt. He had a dark complexion, like he was really tanned, and had small beady eyes that were set far apart. He was described as not having any nose, ears, or hair. Okay. In a second known encounter, his suit was said to be blue instead of green, but still retained its reflective properties. Along with that, he was also, he looked perfectly natural with slick back hair, a coat with the top two buttons unbuttoned, and had pants lighter than the coat, but the same material. He was also described as being quite tan, although not dark, and looking like any normal human being. According to reports that were made by Woodrow Derenberger, and this is the person who we discussed on the show last week, Indrid Cold came from a planet named Lanulos in the, I think you say Ganymedes galaxy, and there are two other grinning men by the names of Demo Hassan and Carl Ardo. All right, so I'll go over quite briefly the three sightings that we've had. Okay, so Indrid was first seen on October 16th in 1966 when two boys, their nicknames were Mouse and Jimmy, in New Jersey, were walking on 4th Street when they saw a figure standing near a fence. As they walked closer, the figure was a tall, bald man wearing the metal green suit, staring right at them with a huge grin. He chased them until they got away from him. So this man actually kind of chased the kids, which is a little creepy. But UFO sightings were also reported around that area. The one thing that really stood out was he had a huge smile, a big grin. They would recall that the man had a green suit, unusually tall, and had a natural facial feature such as a lack of ears and a nose. Even though most sources mention the New Jersey sighting, Indrid Cold and the Grinning Man could be completely different entities, according to that report. All right. The second sighting was the one that we discussed about in the Mothman area in Point Pleasant, but this is in Parkersburg, West Virginia, which isn't too far from Point Pleasant. There was a man named Woodrow Derenberger driving home on Interstate 77, and he heard a crash. Well, actually, I believe some reports say that there was a car that was trying to outrun a UFO. Some kind of thing was in the air chasing a car, and the car sped off right in front of Woodrow, Mr. Derenberger, and it caught the attention. It saw Mr. Woodrow's van, okay, and so it stopped, and it landed in front of his truck. He described this vehicle as an old-fashioned kerosene lamp chimney, flaring at both ends, narrowing down to a small neck, and then enlarging in a great bulge in the center. The Grinning Man came out of the vehicle with a dark tan, walked up to Derenberger, telepathically said his name was Indrid Cold, and he meant no harm. And he kept telling this guy this over and over again. I guess Mr. Derenberger was pretty freaked out. And so, but the man was just smiling, a huge grin, and his lips never moved. All right. And I've actually experienced that before in real life, with entities that I've encountered. Okay. After the encounter, let's see, Derenberger stated that Cold revealed he was from the planet Lanulos in the galaxy of Ganymedes. Okay. The third sighting, during the same period in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, so this is Point Pleasant where the Mothman was sighted, the Lilly family had been reporting that poltergeist activity had been occurring in their home, such as diamond-shaped lights. The Lilly's daughter was sleeping one night and awoke to see a man standing over her. Okay, now they were connecting Indrid Cold with Valiant Thor. Okay, and so a lot of people may know who Valiant Thor is. He's come up pretty often in the UFO community. We'll talk about that later tonight. But she said it was a man, a big man, very broad. Couldn't see his face very well, but I could only see that he was grinning at me. He walked around the bed and stood right over me. I screamed and hid under the covers. I looked again, and he was gone. All right, that's creepy, super, super creepy. But okay, so I've remote viewed Indrid Cold, and I have Barry Littleton here, the paranormal researcher extraordinaire and my good friend. And I'm going to bring Barry up so we can get to work on this target tonight. Hey, Barry.
Greetings. Hello, Jessica. Thank you for having me back. I'm honored to be here, definitely. Yes. And hello to your audience who's been so kind, definitely.
Thank you, Barry. Thank you so much for being here tonight. I know, neither of us, neither you nor I, are super familiar with Indrid Cold. We weren't until this show tonight. So, but you are extremely knowledgeable in abductions and UFOs and ETs and things like that. And so that's why I thought it'd be really special to have you on tonight to help me out with this.
You know, I'd heard of the Grinning Man and read some stuff about that, but I think it gets somewhat changed in folklore and urban legend opposed to what this initial story here is. So it's interesting. And I think that I really want to hear, I just saw all your data. So it's going to be cool to hear you go over it. And then after that, I think we'll kind of maybe meld it with some of the things, because as a contactee, one that's been of the physical nature a lot of the time, I have some issues with some things I hear. They don't vibe, but there are other things that do. And I think that this will bring those forward. So it'll be cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, this is all so interconnected and interwoven with a lot of the things that we've talked about in the past. And even the Mothman of all things, and the black-eyed children, and the Men in Black. Okay. So let's just go ahead and get straight into the data tonight. Now I did one target for this because it ended up being pretty cut and dry as to what Indrid Cold is or was. Okay. And, okay, so I remote viewed the actual incident with Mr. Derenberger when he had the craft land in front of his vehicle, and the door opened, and Indrid Cold walked out, and it was shocking to this man, to say the least. What he saw. Okay, so I did pick up that Indrid Cold is. Let's just get down to it. He was from another planet. Okay, he actually was from another planet, and I was picking up time traveler, which that's relative when you consider that he came through, he was traveling through a wormhole. Okay. And so it was that kind of travel. It wasn't, I'm not going to say he was like in a time machine. He was traveling via wormholes to get here. He came from an advanced civilization. Okay. And, I mean, it was off planet from another galaxy. Okay. Absolutely. Now I was picking up on Andromeda. Okay. And I'm not really sure what relationship Andromeda has with Lanulos. Okay. But that's what I got. Okay. And he was in a ship that did levitate. It had some sort of technology to it that was kind of typical of a UFO craft that we'd see today, which there's so many different types of UFO crafts. But he was from off planet, and I picked up that he was really good looking. Okay. He was a good looking man. And so
with those pictures, are you kidding me?
I have pictures. I have a lot of pictures.
That brother played the Joker, Jack Nicholson. That's the Joker.
He was better looking than that. Yeah, he was a grinning man. But yeah, he was he was the grinning man, but however, he was a good looking grinning man. Okay. Everybody likes a man that smiles. Okay. Let's see. Oh my gosh. Okay. Sorry. Thank you for that super chat, Higher Ground. I'm trying to find you on here to pull you up on the screen. But I do appreciate that. I'll pull you up in just a second. Okay, so but I did get that he was from Andromeda. Now I didn't even know what Andromeda was exactly. It's a galaxy, everybody. Okay, but I also picked up on MIBs. I don't believe he's an MIB though, but I did pick up on Men in Black, and that he is an alien but a human, just like us, but not from this planet. Okay, but he was a human. He was capable of mind control and telepathy. And they see Earth as a petri dish. It's Earth is like something that it's like a petri dish, like an experimental thing. Like last week we were talking about is on Spaced Out Radio Sunday night, Barry, you and I were discussing, is Earth a laboratory? Absolutely. That's exactly what my data. So this ties into that topic that we talked about on Spaced Out Radio Sunday night. This is a laboratory, and basically they're here to kind of check in and see what's going on here. And I literally picked that up. They're here to check up on things. I also was picking up something about diseases and how they are interested in diseases, and they were, I couldn't figure out what that was. I was like, what would diseases have to do with anything? But they so right before the show, okay, I knew that Mr. Derenberger's daughter had written a book called I think it was called Beyond Andromeda or something like that, or not Andromeda, Lanulos. Sorry, Andromeda is my thing. Her let's see if I have a picture of her book. So I found a podcast that she was interviewed on about 2 months ago, and I was listening to it right before the show tonight. It brought tears in my eyes, not because it's such a touching story. I mean, yes, it is. It's a touching story. But, you know, a lot of times when I am remote viewing, Barry, I don't get any kind of confirmation as to what my data is. Okay. I get the data, I put it out there, and we close the chapter on that. And I don't have a whole lot of confirmation. And sometimes down the road, especially with the dogman attacks that I do have people that contact me with firsthand knowledge, and they do confirm most of what I talk about. I get that pretty often. But with this, she had said during this interview that I just heard that she was in contact with Indrid Cold. I believe she said she still is in contact with Indrid Cold. I'm not sure if he's died yet or not, but she was in contact with him, and he discussed with her how when they leave Earth and go back to their planet, it is so clean there that they have to, in a sense, quarantine. They have to wash their bodies down. They have to decontaminate because we have diseases here. And I picked that up in my data, and Barry, it literally made me tear up because I was like, oh my God, that's what that data meant. I had no idea. So it was interesting to say the least.
I don't want to interrupt, but that's so interesting how that correlates, some of my personal experiences. One of them would be what I've always termed the acid rain experience. And I've got a video on my channel about that, but it was the one that happened when I was in the 6th grade that definitely took from, being these things that happened at night that were physical, but to them actually being no doubt real because they're crossing into my day life at like school and stuff, But this craft I was on, and with the being there is communicating with me things about why they don't often come out of these ships and actually are naked in our atmosphere.
Yeah.
Is because, as far as being out of the craft, is because of what they refer to as the M&M effect. I call it. The metals and the microwaves in our atmosphere was very hazardous for them.
Yeah.
And I think that goes along too with the bacterial factor as well. I was, very interested for a long time to know, as contactees, there's a lot of times it was said that melanated contactees do not go through the same disinfection type of system when you get taken on board a craft, and that this disinfection comes from ultraviolet light. That's often the light that takes you into the craft. So it's either, this blue light or a purple light, something like that, that actually is a disinfectant light. So I became interested to know how many melanated contactees had experienced that light as opposed to those that were non-melanated. Just curious.
Yeah.
But anyway, that takes us also to just H.G. Wells, or the War of the Worlds. Really, if you remember the original one, what happened is those ships were invincible, but what got them when they started coming out of the craft?
The germs, right?
Biological agents. That's what we're about.
It's those darn germs, man. No, germs are good for you, unless you're from a different planet. You're not so good.
Here we've got so many on our planet that are, we're just covered in them. Just those dust mites alone, if you know what those are, it's quite creepy.
Yeah. I don't like to think about it, but yeah, I know what they are. Yeah, they get all up in your mattress and stuff. Yeah. So, but it's interesting because in all of the different sightings of Indrid, he was described as wearing, or people who look like Indrid, he was wearing a metallic looking suit. And you know what? That actually made me think about I think it was 1973 in Alabama, there was a sheriff's deputy. And if you'll notice, a lot of these stories we talk about with cryptid sightings are reported by sheriff's deputies and law enforcement. Okay. And so in the 70s in Alabama, there was the Falkville Metal Man showed up. Okay. And the deputy, I don't know the full story behind this. I would not mind remote viewing this one. Okay. Because this is an interesting story too. But the deputy actually took a picture of this thing. It looks like a man with aluminum foil on, or a air duct material, in my opinion, but metallic nonetheless. Okay, so I kind of just made that connection. It may not have any connection, but I did think about that. So, this could be a hoax for all I know. I have no idea. However, it's metallic. I would think that Indrid Cold, he was such a good-looking man in my data here. I'm thinking he probably had on a little sexier outfit than that. I'm just thinking.
I think when keeping a frame of reference for this, think about like some of the suits I've seen with some of these extraterrestrials on, these star beings, whatever they are like a type of what we would call new biomaterial. That is metamaterials. And, some of these are even not just symbiotically connected with the craft and their biology, but some of them also have defensive capabilities. And, regardless of what people think about, I think the Jonathan Reed story, whether that be real or not, some of the nuggets that were given in that story, one would be the way he kept talking about that suit that
Really?
thing had, that individual had on, and how it was self-repair, self-healing, and also it attacked him too, and it's what attacked the dog, supposedly.
Wow.
So this is food for thought when we start dealing with metamaterials and different things like that. That I think it's interesting because that's a commonality between both the Men in Black and the Black-Eyed Children. They're always reported in these odd black suits or outfits. With the Black-Eyed Children, it's often black hoodies, but with the Men in Black, it's these black outfit. We start going back and taking out the joke that the Men in Black became when the Prince of Bel Air started playing the the Men in Black. It just became a joke. But in
Yeah.
reality, the first time I became hip to the Men in Black, I was a kid. I read a book called Three Men in a Flying Saucer by Albert Bender. And Albert Bender is where most of the MIB stuff all started. And I find it interesting because he also reported them as being darker and melanated. And, you know, when dealing with the contact phenomenon in Andromedan, there's been a lot of people that have reported interacting with melanated people from the Andromeda galaxy, which is a big one.
Wow.
And then later on, you hear about other Men in Black that are more pale and seem even more still robotic to the same deal. And I want to say, anybody that we're dealing with beings from another galaxy, okay, we have to really start considering something I had to deal with in my contact experiences, that some of these beings are thought forms and they have different containers for consciousness, whether it be light, plasma, you know, different containers for consciousness until they get here and they start using things that are clone bodies, or they have ways of projecting through our optical nerves or using virtual reality technology that tricks us, that makes us not be able to perceive them for what they are. So I want everybody to be very aware of that. It's real, okay? And when dealing with these Men in Black, the way they act, the way Albert Bender described them acting, including the way I'm hearing much about this Mr. Cold, how he acts, is we're dealing with, you know, some type of biodroids. And you've got something projecting some type of artificial consciousness into a probably cyborg type of body. And I think that's what we're dealing with. We have to just deal with that. We're dealing with type 3, type 4 civilizations. And before I shut my mouth, something that really struck me is when I sent you some videos you watched, and you sent me pictures back of, this looks like the ship that he was in. And it was a ship that it was actually what's called a von Neumann probe or a Bracewell probe from a type. Yeah, right on. You're on it. Thank you. A type 2 or
you
type.
know I'm on it, Barry.
Yeah, so what that is, you know, and what that is, a Bracewell probe is it comes to a planet that's about to become a type 1 civilization and makes contact to make it so it can join galactic citizenship. And I think a movie that represents that is the movie 2001: An Odyssey. Remember the monolith? The monolith came and the monkeys are jumping around it a long time. The monolith stayed, and there was another one on the moon that activated when we got to a certain level of technology. So I think these are things to just be aware of. And a von Neumann probe, which is what that one was, the picture we just saw, is self-replicating Bracewell type probes that are often considered to be hostile. But either or, when we're dealing with that type of technology, and what your data showed about Mr. Cold, which showed that that's an individual from one of these probe things making contact. What do you say? You want to know more about human race, about Earth? Just food for thought, all right?
Yeah.
Talking too much. I'll get carried away.
No, that's what we're here for tonight, is to talk, Barry. Okay. So yeah. Well, okay, well, let's show some pictures really fast of what all we're talking about. This is just some art that I found online of the incident. Okay, and so I have this is kind of what happened. Okay, that is Mr. Derenberger pulled over, you know, with the craft in front of his car, and there's the Grinning Man right there in front of the, you know, at the side of his truck. Okay, also, you know, another rendition here, and a picture of him, you know. And then, okay, so after, okay, that night that this happened, Mr. Derenberger was really upset. Okay, as you can imagine, he was a little out of it. Okay, he said that he was shocked, and Indrid referred to himself as we, and he told him that his name was Cold, and it was telepathically, and his lips never moved. He was asking Mr. Derenberger questions about being human, okay, and about how they lived in cities there. And they said, well, you know, we don't have cities where we live. We live in our communities. We call it a gathering where we live. But he repeatedly told Mr. Derenberger to not be frightened, but Mr. Derenberger could not look him in his eyes, and he kept and Mr. Cold kept asking him, "Will you please just look in my eyes?" And he wouldn't do it. He wouldn't do it. Because he was scared. But Colt said, this is very interesting, Barry. Indrid Cold said that he was a searcher. Okay, a searcher, and that he would see Mr. Derenberger again. And as he walked back into the craft and to shut the door, there was another man, another human standing in the door when they left. He told his wife when he got home, they called the police. The sheriff or a deputy and a reporter actually showed up at their house, and they did an interview. And I actually watched this interview, which is pretty interesting. He told the whole story about what happened, and later on, it said that he actually was visited by Cold time and time again, and he was taken to Cold's planet. That's what his daughter says, that he went on, to this planet, and she wrote a book about it. It's called Beyond Lanulus. It's what I showed a while ago on the screen. So it's a very interesting story. She said she actually kept in contact with Mr. Cold and two of his friends, the other two guys that I mentioned in the beginning, Demo Hassan and Carl Ardo. Okay. And she actually, in the interview that I watched tonight, she was actually talking about how they both, they talked about how in their planet, it sounds basically like they're living in what our 1950s scenario is, like where the women stay home and have babies and make food and have like the typical like male, feminine and masculine roles, and the man works.
So they have a completely nice humanoid society that's so much like Earth, they're just a little bit different, right?
Yes.
And these people are going there and inhaling these foreign toxins and just okay. I got you.
Searching, but what are they searching for? I don't know, because in the same area we have the Mothman, who was the watcher or the harbinger, and so we got searchers and we have watchers and people that, and the Mothman that warns people of impending doom.
With Albert Bender, like I mentioned before, the first person with the MIB thing, he had said that they told him that they were here to actually get a valuable resource from our ocean. And I used to think that was like some type of maybe uranium or something similar, but now I think it's actually prana, life force. That's what a lot of these craft run on. But anyway, just that's interesting. So what was he searching for, and what was this thing they were getting out of the sea? Is there a connection between that and what the Grinning Man was telling Cold was telling them?
I think it could be.
In food for thought,
Yeah, because I never really picked up, I don't think, on exactly what they were searching for here. Okay, but he did say that he was a searcher. Okay, for their planet. I guess he's doing humanitarian work for Lanulus. Okay, but I did pick up that he was a scout. Okay, so he's a scout, but the way he described it, he said he was a searcher. So that's the same thing as a scout, right? So that's what I picked up on. But yeah,
somebody I saw a question over here that said, do I think the MIBs were thought forms? No, I think they're AI. I think that they're actually, but what I'm saying is a lot of the beings that come here from other when we start talking about extra galactic contact, or even contact, what I had accept beings from other universes, a lot of them are thought forms that have different containers for consciousness. I don't think that's what the MIBs are. I think they're like similar to what people call some of those little grays being biodroids. So I think you've got, some type of a cyborg type of a body that is, using I think that's real AI there, on the conscious level and somewhat organic. We start looking at the cyborg part of it. Something's going on, because Albert Bender described MIB as saying they're running out of energy, and then them disappearing with the car and everything. And it's fascinating. Anyway, sorry.
Wow. Don't be sorry. We're here to talk.
You were saying something, and I went on that. It's a little different from what you're saying.
No, it's absolutely. Well, a lot of people assumed that he was a man, MIB, a Men in Black character, because there are other men with him, and they were dressed nicely, and had on suits. They were described as having like button down shirts, and of course it was metallic looking, but they looked different. And in the first account, they said that he didn't have a nose, and his skin was weird. And so But we have, but you know,
That kind of
even
crushes your good looking.
I think it was good. I know. Well, but that was the first account. The second account, the one that actually remote viewed, he was really good looking. Okay. And he had a nose. I think a man with a nose, it looks better than, you know, I'm not saying a man without, I've never seen a man without a nose, but I don't know, it happens, you know. But but anyways, yeah. But yeah, it was he was not bad looking. Okay. All right. Give me a break here. Okay.
I say you sure we're watching 90210 or maybe Melrose Place or something.
No,
Clark
what is
Gable.
that?
I'm
Yeah,
just
no,
teasing you.
well, yeah, no, there's that show on HBO about that back in the 1960s. I forgot what that was, where they all the guys had their hair slicked back and they were, I don't know, they're all looking good, wearing business suits and stuff. Okay, but anyways, let's get back to the topic. Okay, so so I wanted to talk about MIBs a little bit, because yeah, okay, so Indrid described where he was from as being very cold. Okay. And his last name was Cold, is what he said. All right. Um, but he said he came from a place that was cold. Something about a base in Antarctica or something like that. There was something about Antarctica was brought up at some point. And so yeah, I don't know. Let's talk about MIBs and where they come from, Barry, because you know a little bit about MIBs more than I do. And so let's talk about it. And what is the connection to Antarctica? And Barry, are you there or is that me? Hey, okay. So I must have lost Barry there. Okay. But we're going to try to get Barry back. Let me see. Let me hide this comment. Okay. So I guess Barry froze up and that's okay. We're gonna try to get Barry back. He's backstage, y'all. Hold on, let me pull him back up. All right, Barry. I thought that was me that had frozen.
It's been happening constantly. I haven't said anything. I was trying to overpower it.
Mind control.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't know which end it's coming from, but
yes.
still here though.
Somebody said freeze frame. We do. But yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit about MIBs because you have actually done at least one or two videos, probably more, on MIBs. And of course, people think that he could have been an MIB. I did not pick up on that. It was not in my data. However, MIBs could be aliens, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, that, you know, the first one's, like I said, it's going back to Albert Bender, and I recommend everybody look at that and see where the originating source of all this comes from. And like I said, they seem very much like bio droids to some degree, and you know, it's a matter of now isolating where are they all actually from and what they're coming here, what they're doing. And they tried to turn Albert Bender and other people that reported them after that away from, you know, researching the extraterrestrial UFO topic at all. And some of it was based on they didn't want what they were doing with our sea to be recognized. With our oceans, rather. Sorry.
Oh yeah, that's interesting.
That's in his book, and some other people have spoken of it too. So it's you know, it's interesting in that way.
Wow. So you're talking about we're talking about like UFOs and things taking the orgone. Is that what you call it? The orgone energy out of our waters and our seas.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Orgone, prana, yeah, chi, life energy.
Interesting. Okay. So they're sucking up this orgone. They're using it for what? To power their crafts?
Well, you know, to the degree of what I've seen it used for is actually as a power source, but also for like what we would call gravity modification around the skin of the craft. They'll release that, and it actually helps them with whatever they're doing, especially going into other dimensions, other universes, or whatever. And some of these craft themselves operate on that prana, on life energy. That's why some of the crew are symbiotically connected to it. It's some of their life energy, but then some of it has to come from a different source. You know, this is just a different level when we get away from the constant thinking of just everything's are reptilians, everything are grays. You've got a whole higher civilizations that are interacting with this planet that are using different types of technology, you know, to a point of where when this type of gravity modification field I'm talking about, when you start looking at any of those pictures from like the 50s and the 60s, the UFO pictures, look at the ones that have the dark void underneath them, those tend to be those real pictures, because once that anti-gravity field is released around the skin of the craft, it has a negative reflection with camera equipment. So you'll see that black void. That's an indication of this orgone conversion technology I'm talking about. That same conversion, like when you see a USO over the water and they're picking up that orgone, they're sucking it up. They also can use that when they're releasing it, whether it's an anti-gravity field or not. That conversion process itself creates a type of a mist that sometimes they use for cloaking, and sometimes that leads to us seeing lenticular clouds.
Oh, wow.
Lenticular clouds, which often looks like UFOs. Always pay attention to those. Or the craft that, I'm going to give you a secret, or the clouds you see that have a rainbow stripe in them. Yes. Look at those. Something about that conversion process, sometimes that's a byproduct of it. So when you see a cloud, it's got something like that in it. Try to do some cloud dissipation with your eyes. See what you see.
Wow, interesting. That is really cool. Very interesting, Barry. And I'm going to actually be talking about that. And I have a whole lot of pictures to show on Sunday night. I have Jesus Payan, you guys know him as Gonzo from Breaking Bad. Okay. And Better Call Saul. He's coming on Space Out Radio Sunday night. He's got some great, awesome UFO pictures that he's taken with a lot of really cool clouds with even some rainbow stuff going on in them. And so we're going to talk about that on Sunday night. So everybody, y'all tune in, Space Out Radio. Okay. But Barry, so you made a point earlier about the MIBs and the men in black wearing the black clothing, the dark clothing. And, Indrid Cold was wearing dark clothing. And these guys, they're all, dressed up really nice, and made the connection with the black-eyed children wearing dark colored clothing. Okay. And I know last week we were making a connection with the black-eyed children and garbage pail kids. Okay. And the Mothman is all kind of connected in some way. And I thought
in that way, they're both warning systems. What the MIBs really did were warning people to get off the UFO thing. Mm-hmm. The black-eyed children, I think, are a warning system for a possible timeline that is nuclear war. And that's why I brought up the garbage pail thing, since there's garbage pail kids, as they were supposed to be the survivors of nuclear fallout. But I think that's the warning system. Whatever this is we're dealing with sends warnings, and I think that's one of them there. Two of them we're looking at.
Yeah.
And, whatever they've seen that on that timeline has created this blackness you see in their eyes, and the same horrible feeling people get around them. And those few that have touched them, look up the reports, what the people describe getting very sick after touching one of these black-eyed children. But the sickness they're describing is very similar to radiation poisoning. Look up the symptoms. I find that interesting. I'm not saying I'm right, but it's food for thought, if nothing else. And I said that phenomenon of black-eyed children wouldn't persist like it was in 2009, 2010. And it has kind of tapered off to a degree to becoming more of a late urban legend now. So, again, food for thought. And concerning the suits, I can only speak from my personal experience. And I have encountered some beings that said they were from Andromeda. And I've got some sketches of them made. And the little blue guys, you might remember that sketch. They were little, okay? But they had on these suits that were blue also, with these white bluish stripes, almost like a racing stripes on them. And I know that I was being communicated that was actually these type of, it's not nanomaterial. It's some type of metamaterial that is symbiotically connected to the devices they were holding, but also the ship itself. So you've got, these are living organisms that are connected in that way. So anyway, sorry.
Wow. Okay. Well, Barry, I have two of our viewers tonight. We've got Crystal and Laura are in the chat tonight, and they both mentioned the MIBs walking through walls and walking through a cattle fence. Is that something you've heard before? Because I've not heard that.
Yeah. I think them, like you hear that about Bigfoot. I think we're dealing with, beings that can manipulate manifestations, so they can, going through that the same way almost Star Trek uses a transporter, probably, but I have heard that before about them going through, and also the vehicles that they come in just disappearing, like them getting towards the vehicle or getting in as a flash of.
Yeah. All right. I'm assuming that's Barry's internet. So Let's see. Barry's frozen right now. It may be mine. I have no idea. I can't tell. But yeah. So we are, let me take this down. Yeah. Hopefully Barry will come back and unfreeze here in a second. But yeah, that's something that I had not heard of before. But yeah, if Bigfoot can do it, Men in Black can do it, I guess. And ETs and things like that. So let's see, Barry. Barry, if you want to, we've only got a few more minutes tonight. If you want to log out and then try to come back. All right. I'm going to take Barry down. I'm going to take Barry down until he unfreezes. He's going to try to come back in here tonight and log back in. So yeah, he is a wealth. He's a wealth of knowledge. Yes. Werewolf 5674. I think they got him. He got beamed up tonight. He got beamed up. We're going to get him back though. All right. And I thought it was interesting that Barry brought up reptilians a while ago, and thank you, Overbill. I appreciate that. My internet's good. Barry's back. But I thought it was interesting that Barry brought up the Garbage Pail Kids, and he was bringing, well, I brought the Garbage Pail Kids, but about the reptilians. And I had a reptilian Garbage Pail Kid ready to go. Hey, Barry.
Greetings.
Internet's a little wonky tonight. Somebody's not wanting to hear what we have to say.
It seems that way because mine is reading as strong over here. I've got my phone too. My signals are strong, so I don't know why it's happening.
It's usually mine. I have to sit there and I'm like, well, is that mine or Barry's? I don't know. Could somebody in the chat please let me know?
It seems like it is interference. I try to steer away from the conspiracy stuff, but it does seem like it's interference.
It could be, yeah.
Yeah, because we're just talking about manifestation of beings and beings that manifest. So them, I think, are connected to that. So sorry, I've been gone since then.
That's awesome. Yeah, because I had never heard about MIBs walking through walls and things like that. But especially if MIBs are ET related, if they are ETs, I mean, how do the ETs get in people's homes to abduct them and things like that?
Mm-hmm. And they often bring people through walls. You know what I mean? So it's the manipulation of matter. Those things, those devices that can change matter into energy and energy into matter. So it's and I think some of them can do it consciously. So it's a whole nother level.
Yeah. Yeah. I often wonder about when people are abducted, is it the actual body all the time that is actually going out of the house? And how does it get up out of the bed? And are they taken out like that? Like if they're in their home, or is it more like an astral abduction, like with their astral body?
It can be both, but a lot of times it's the levitational beam. It's that entrance beam that brings people in that brings them through walls and brings them onto the craft. A lot of times it's a light beam. I became interested in what types of different lights there were, not just to see which ones might be potential sterilization agents, but also just what different colors. Mostly I hear gold or blue a lot, blue light.
Interesting.
That's what I actually experienced myself. So.
Yeah. So for the people in the audience that don't know, they're not familiar, you've actually experienced ETs for most of your life, starting at a young age.
Yeah, it's a trip because you always call me a researcher, which I guess I qualify as a little bit, but I'm more an experiencer. Yeah, and that's kind of, and I've always been wanting to, because I always had the definite feeling that about 70% of our population has had contact, whether if it's astral, dream, or physical, like me. And since coming forward, I can say that's only been proven correct. We have a lot of people who've had contact. I mean, it's unreal, but I think that's the part of us becoming a type 1 civilization, going forward.
Huh. Yeah, very interesting. I mean, I've had occurrences with ETs, I've seen them within a few feet of me before. So, I've always wondered, but
Jessica,
I never really
would you classify your experiences as positive or negative with
neutral?
ETs?
I would say neutral. It wasn't like positive, like I was excited or happy about it. I was not happy about it. I just, but I'm so inoculated to the high strangeness that I just was like, oh, wow, that's weird. That's really weird. Oh, wow, there's something it got in my house. I'll be darned. It was just that kind of a thing. And I didn't feel threatened by it. However, there was one big, gigantic being that had like a robe on and a hood over its head. So that was weird.
Was that a mantis?
Yes, I believe so. I couldn't see the whole body, but I could see the way it was moving, and I could see its what would be hands, but they weren't human hands. And it psychically, I knew it was like a praying mantis, a really big one. Yeah. So I don't even know what that is, Barry.
There's all sorts of different types of mantids that have been reported. I've encountered insectoid intelligence, but it was not a mantid, and it's interesting that some of the reports, so I guess you maybe didn't see its head, but I hear so much about them projecting light coming out of their mouth and from around their head. Several different types, especially the bigger ones. So I think that's something that's noteworthy,
Yeah, well, this thing had a hood on over its head. It was creepy. Now, okay, there's DC Joey in the chat tonight. He's saying Valiant Thor. Okay, okay. As far as Valiant Thor goes, that was actually, it's been brought up with Indrid Cold. I did not pick up in my data that it had a connection to Valiant Thor. That it's not the same person. I think these are two different beings. Okay.
Hey, Jessica, what do you think about Valiant Thor?
I don't know a whole lot about Valiant Thor. He was good looking too, though, from what I understand.
Oh boy.
I heard he was good looking. That's all I know. I'm just kidding.
Interesting.
Yeah. But wasn't he like a blonde-headed, blue-eyed kind of guy? I mean, I don't know a whole lot about Valiant Thor. Yeah. What do you know about Valiant Thor? Because I know last week you were like, "Well, I'm not too big on Valiant Thor."
I'm sorry, I'm just not.
Tell me. Let's hear about it.
I find that story being exaggerated, especially in the metaphysical communities right now. And there's so many people right now that are in contact with Valiant Thor. It's like, is this guy on the internet? I mean, I just have issues with it. And for me, as a contactee, a lot of it doesn't ring. I just don't vibe with it. I'm sorry. I know people are going to get mad at me and I'm get sticks thrown at me. I like the movie Thor, though. Does that count?
Yes, we like Thor. Yes. Oh my gosh, my son is growing his hair long to look like Thor right now.
And for the record, I'm not saying the initial contact of it is not true, which is Howard Miniger, right? I believe. Yeah. So I'm not saying that the original contact of it is not true, but I think some of it has been so popularized that we have to be careful, because as well as I do, very little of the contact phenomenon and experience is like what we read in the media.
Yeah. Well, how can you tell, Barry, if you've met a person and they've had ET contact, like, do you think that people are pretty genuine about when they talk about their ET experiences usually with you?
Well, in person, I can especially detect it then. And this is a word that I stole from Doctor Who. It's called Artron, like Artron energy.
Yes.
But when you actually have dealt with some of these beings, or some of these UFOs, been on board one that has these technologies that deal with these wormholes, these makos, black holes, and this type of a technology, this life energy we just discussed, something about it irradiates, especially if you're there physically, it irradiates the cells of our bodies.
Okay.
And when I get around another contactee, I can detect it. Like I could detect it on you, and I asked you that contact before you even told me. When we first actually met each other.
Well, I didn't go around talking about it, especially back then. But here I am. I've been talking about it. I let the cat out of the bag, and so it's all systems go now. So
and what I'll say is this, like I've met some of these quote unquote whistleblowers, the ones that are really well known in our community.
Yeah.
And when I am near them, especially, if I don't detect that Artron energy, why not? There's one of them that's well known. I mean, they wanted to hug me when I first met them. And I'm not the huggy type of brother, really, but I went ahead and let them do it so I get a read on them. But I had to, despite the bureaucracy around them, I had to accept one thing. They had this Artron energy on them, big time.
Yeah.
So they either have dealt with beings that are dealing with it, or they've been on a craft or around technology that's dealing with this. So, I try to keep things more scientific and reality based, because it just gets so far out sometimes, and it's weird anyway. This whole stuff is just weird.
It's all very weird, and that's another thing with the cryptid world as well. I'm a boots on the ground type of researcher, and so thank you, Rico Pyro. We appreciate that so much. Yeah.
I'll,
Much respect, Barry.
I'll say something there. Okay. Now, somebody just quoted that Valiant Thor is supposed to be from Venus. Okay. Now, taking that and using that from the other gentleman that was from Venus, or say he was having contact from there, George, oh gosh, I'm going to say the name wrong. Adamski. Anyway, his contact always, I did resonate with. And I'll tell you why. One is those Nordics he was dealing with, the type of suit he described them having on. These blue suits are similar to the suits from the Nordics I encountered. So I deal with that, number one. Number two, I've seen a craft physically that is similar to the ones he has pictures of. Not exact, but the balls underneath it, the gravitational balls, I've seen craft like that. So I have to take those two things about what he says and accept it. And when he says they're from Venus, we start going in the future. How far is it before we start expanding out to other planets that actually might be more viable than they tell us? Or did this happen in the past or will in the future? So I'm just not discounting Venus contacts. Just want to say that.
I mean, everything happens in the past, present, and future at this moment right now, right? Time. We talk about time. It is
with that.
Yeah, right.
Mm-hmm.
I did get the Indrid Cold was he was involved with the time traveling, but of course, we have what we call wormholes, okay? And so that's all it's a whole other topic here, okay? And so time is relative, y'all. I don't know. He's a time traveler. Anybody that goes into space is a time traveler, right? So
that's part of it. And there's no, wait, go ahead. It's just there's a lot of things to that. I think when you brought up the data of the von Neumann probe and also the time traveling type of devices, I think you're dealing with a singularity there, a connection that we're not this more connected than we think.
Yeah, I think so too. Well, Barry, this hour has flown by, and we've come to the end of the show, actually. So this has been crazy. I feel like I have a lot more to talk about. However, if we go to a second hour, it's going to probably just go into something completely different. So I'm thinking maybe we'll just cut it here, okay, tonight. And I want to thank everybody for the super chats tonight. You guys are awesome. Thank y'all so much. We really appreciate that from the bottom of our hearts, and it means the world to me. So, and thank everybody for joining us tonight. Barry, where can everybody find you? I have your YouTube to pull up and your Patreon here.
Thanks. I hope I didn't piss a bunch of people off tonight. Okay. No. I feel like they're throwing carrots at me like the Apollo. No. YouTube is a good place to find me, just under Barry Littleton. And I'm on Patreon under Barry Littleton, too. I do a lot of work there. And I'm on Facebook as well. Those are the three places to catch me. BarryLittleton.com is links to those places as well, but it's under kind of construction.
Yeah, well, it's amazing. Okay, everybody, please subscribe to his Patreon, and y'all go to my Patreon as well. The Cryptid Huntress. You guys can have full access to all of my data for my remote viewing targets. And if you go to the VIP Patreon, I send a gift to all of my VIPs. So this month, everybody got a Cryptid Huntress keychain, okay, with a Bigfoot and an alien on it. So designed by me. But anyways, you guys, thank you all so much for being here tonight. I think that we covered Indrid Cold pretty well tonight, Barry, and I really appreciate your expertise. So thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, and thank you guys all for being here tonight. Please join me this weekend on Space Out Radio. Tomorrow night, I have the Josh Turner from Paranormal Roundtable coming on the show. We're going to talk about Dog Man and all sorts of paranormal weird stuff, cryptids and the end times. Sunday night, I have Jesus Payan, aka Gonzo from Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, coming on my show to talk about Sasquatch and breaking Bigfoot and his UFO encounters and ghosts and all that stuff. We're going to break him out of the Bigfoot box. We're going to talk about everything on Sunday, and I can't wait. So, all right, well, everybody, Barry.
No, it's just I had a client and I called his house. I said, "Hey, man, please speak to Jesus." And they said, "Man, do you mean Jesus?" So it might be pronounced different. I don't know.
No, Barry. I talked to Jesus on the phone, and I did. At the first question I had is it Jesus or Jesus? It's
It is
definitely
Jesus.
Jesus. It's
That's
definitely
cool. That's
Jesus.
cool.
Yes.
I got in
He's
trouble for that.
he's awesome. He's super cool about it. Okay. So
That's cool. That's
listen,
cool.
I check first before I say things publicly. Okay. All right, everybody. Well, thank y'all so much for being here tonight. This has been a blast. And listen, we'll have a really great show for you guys next Friday. I will. And yeah, so you guys have a great weekend. Join me tomorrow night on Space Out Radio, and I will see y'all next time. Y'all have a good night. Bye.